I've heard so many people say that it's difficult to thread these Juki TL sewing machines, and I just don't get it. But maybe it's because I have threaded mine over 1,000 times by this point in my life, but it certainly feels like second nature to me. So stick around, because if you're having difficulties threading your machine, I'm going to teach you how to do it like a pro. I'm going to do this once at normal speed and just sort of talk my way through it, and then don't worry, I'm going to slow it down and I'm going to show you every part step by step. I'm using a dark thread so you can see what I'm doing, but I'm going to go through the top post twice, through my subtensioner unit, down to the main tension, up through the guides, down through the guides, and then I'm going to drop the presser foot, engage the needle threader, pull the loop through, and I'm ready to sew. Okay, so the general gist of it is that the thread is on the right and it needs to end up on the left. So most of the motions, as in all of the motions, go from right to left, and they kind of do a serpentine motion. So if you ever get lost and think, what am I supposed to do next? Just think, we're moving right to left and we're moving up and down and up and down. The thread path starts over here on the right where you load up the thread. So if you're using a cone, like this one of Ortfil, you can just pop it on this little plastic spool holder thingamabub. I'm sure that's the technical term. And if you're using a spool of thread, you just place it on this plastic pin, and then you'll want to use one of the plastic toppers that they come with, and they do tell you in the instruction manual to put it on like this, like it was an actual hat, but I have found that if I use it like this, the thread can sometimes get a little bit stuck underneath here. So I just put it on upside down, and I've never had any problems whatsoever. Then the thread comes up from behind and passes through this telescopic, so it can get higher or shorter, this telescopic arm. You're going to ignore this little guy back here. That is used for winding bobbins. I'll talk about that in a future video. Then you're going to come to this arm. So it's a thread guide and it's got an arm and it's got 3 holes in it. You're going to go down through the first one, and then you're going to go down through the third one. So it should make a nice little serpentine S pattern on there. Then if you have a machine like mine, you'll have this subtensioner unit. And if you don't, then you just skip this step. So if you do have the subtensioner unit, the thread passes between the discs that are on this subtensioner unit. So you got to make sure that they're in those discs. Once you're through the subtensioner unit, you're going to come down to the main tension unit. And again, if you don't have this one, you just skip this step. You just simply go from this post down to the tension unit, and you're going to come around in a clockwise fashion and make sure that the thread is getting caught in those little tension discs. There's 2 little discs back there. You're going to come back around all the way up to about midnight, and just until you're past the end of this spring, and then you're going to come back and make sure that the thread is caught in this little spring, which is actually pretty important. It's catching the slack every time the needle is making a new stitch. There's slack in the thread, and this is catching that. That's what this little check spring is for. So now that you've made sure that you're in the check spring, you're going to come underneath this little arm down here. Again, in a clockwise fashion, you're going to come up through this guide here, and it usually makes a nice little ding when it does that. Then you're going to come up through from the back to the front through this arm. Gosh, I wish I knew what that thing was called. Back through this, and then I find that there's that nice ding that I was looking for. And then you're going to come back down to this point right here. Once I've got that thread threaded through the top guides, it's time to move on to the needle area. And for this, I tend to hold the thread across my fingers of my left hand and then make a fist around them and put my thumb on top of the thread. And I find that that gives me the dexterity to be able to push it wherever I need to go. So it's almost like I'm making a thumbs up. And the first thing we need to do is get it through this guide up here. And I don't know if it's going to focus on that area, but I'm just going to push it through this first guide here. Then what we need to do is make sure that it comes around and comes back through this little metal guide. Oops, bumped the camera there. So I'm going to push it through that metal guide back here as well and pull it from back to front. From here, I'm going to do a couple of different things. I'm going to move my thumb from being on top to my index finger being on top, because I find that that helps me guide it better. I'm going to drop the that's the presser foot, Shelly. And I'm also going to engage my needle threader. So my needle threader is actually kind of sticky, and I have to really push it hard in order to make sure that this metal piece comes all the way around. Because if I just halfway engage it, it doesn't work. I have to really push it hard in order to make sure that this metal piece comes all the way around. And this is where I'm happy that I've got my left-hand finger in there, because then I can scoot it through that little metal clip and come across this part here, this white plastic part here. I'm going to hold the thread off to the right, and from here I just need a very gentle pressure on this thread, and I can release the needle threader, and it makes a loop over here through the needle. And when I pull that through, my needle is threaded and I'm ready to rock and roll. And if I have way too much thread, like I do in this instance, I usually raise the presser foot, put the thread underneath the presser foot, drop it back down, bring my arm up to the left here, and just pull it on this thread cutter. And then I've got a much more reasonable amount of thread ready to go. That wasn't too bad, right? Now, if you watched this video and you'd like to learn more about this semi-industrial workhorse beast of a machine that I absolutely love, you'll want to check out my video all about my 9 favorite things about this machine and 3 things that I wish I could change. As always, I'm wishing you happy threading, and I'll see you in my next video.